funny thing how somebody can write a dissertation and yet still suffer with the same things. But let's not say suffer. These early pressures on an empath are actually gifts that will improve their healing abilities later. It gives them special capabilities. But I will read from the Karen Kellock dissertation anyway. The empath's inability to form normal attachments to the outside world. They seem damaged or broken. They struggle with past and are hypervigilant in relationships. They are attracted to partners who need healing rather than emotional stability. You see, it's like they choose things that will improve their capabilities. To see through things, to come into a room and read the whole thing. They know exactly what everybody's thinking, which is why they want to be alone. It's overwhelming to be in crowds. And then people say, just get a friend. Just join a church. Like it's so easy, like going to a store and getting a friend. How could you get a friend when nobody can understand you? And you're not even able to form attachments because of the pressures of childhood, of being born whole and coming into a system that awaits you that doesn't understand you. Maybe the parents are alcoholics. Maybe there's two older sisters who hate you and are jealous of you. Nobody understands the empath, and that is the first obstruction to be overcome. But when they do, later in life, they have psychic gifts that nobody else has because nobody else has had to overcome those obstructions. And that makes them magic healers if they can get through all this without becoming drunks or drug addicts or suicide or whatever, because it's tough. Empath is overwhelmed by everybody else's feelings. They absorb it while not being able to access their own. Why? Because it would be too overwhelming. Overwhelmed by chaos. If you face your feelings, it's like being in a bombed out city. So they just go dead to their own feelings. I can remember friends would say, I would be so mad in your position. How come you're not mad? It's because I was numb. I would go into my numb space rather than face what was happening. But then you absorb everybody else's. You got to get to the place where you can heal people while not absorbing up all of their emotions. Again, from my writing, they show contradictory traits, very compassionate yet seeming cold, deeply intuitive yet disconnected from their own needs, because they don't dare have needs. It's all about serving everything out there and absorbing it. It would be too overwhelming, you see. And that seems contradictory to the world. How could they possibly understand somebody in contradiction like that? Now you can see how the early life of the empath is really tough. It is a canyon in the hero's path. And yet it's building inner strength they can't see. It's invisible strength and tools for the future. You see, later on they'll thank God they went through that, because it's going to make them bulletproof. The early empath is a soul operating on multiple levels simultaneously. 4D chess. They are so intelligent that they are absorbing emotions from others, seeing things psychically, denying that, seeing things in the fourth dimension. They're operating on all levels simultaneously, and it is overwhelming. Sorting this out is part of the early empath's life. And if they have disagreeable parents, parents who don't want them, older sisters or siblings that are jealous of them or hate them for their intuitive abilities, they may be the only one who sees the truth and unfortunately says the truth. Like Joseph and his brothers, he dared to tell them his vision for himself in the future, that he would rule Egypt. They hated him for it. His father favored him and gave him a coat of many colors The brothers were jealous. You see, oftentimes the parents will favor an empath. He's a sensitive one. He just wants to be alone. He can take the parent's side and see their deep emotions. The others are impervious, and the others will be jealous of that. It's a rough life. The young empath develops acute pattern recognition. That's systems theory. When I went to graduate school, I immediately wrote a dissertation this thick on systems theory because I knew as a child everything about pattern recognition. They say this, they're going to say this. I could see what was going to happen before it happened because of the system. It's all interconnected. Most people see things separately, or people as individuals. They don't see their behavior as reaction to somebody else, as everything is interconnected. But an empath, having been punished in that early system, can see it all for survival. Early life develops acute pattern recognition, creates internal safe spaces where the true self can retreat when the external becomes too overwhelming. Fortunately, I had parents who were both in their rooms, and my mother would be in her room drinking. My father would be in his room locked in, just ruminating and meditating. And I was in my room just ruminating and meditating. I wanted to stay home with my parents. I joined a sorority. They drove me crazy with all their meaningless events and meaningless chattering and status climbing. I just wanted to go home. All through graduate school, I would drive all the way home to La Mesa on weekends so that I could be alone. Somehow my parents allowed me to be alone. Of course, they didn't give me any guidance because they were involved in their own addictions, but at least I was alone with, a roof over my head. It was a safe space, even though it was unsafe because of the immaturity and addictive personalities. It was a safe space. I just wanted to be alone, to think. And the world didn't want that for me. The world doesn't want you to be alone. They see that as falling off a cliff. They couldn't get me to go to events. I just wasn't interested. You see, the world wants access to you. The world wants your attention. It doesn't want you to be alone. The empath learns to read the emotional temperature of every room she enters and then adjust her own behavior accordingly, okay? For that meant silence, leaving before the event was over, being cordial so as to avoid disapproval, and then getting the hell out of there. And that's regarded as cold, aloof, arrogant, Miss Superior, not really being engaged. I did not like events. But you see, you read the room, you know what's happening, and I could sense betrayal. This person doesn't like me. That person, she's trying to get them to hate me. She's telling stories about me. I could tell. You can read everything until events just become too much. God is not in a crowded room. God wants you separate so He can influence you, not always battling all these thoughts that you can read. And then if you do read them, they call you paranoid. What is paranoia? It's their term for you for seeing things right and setting things straight, for honestly telling the truth. That is called paranoia. Get that right, and don't let them label you. Empaths are late bloomers. They spend their early life developing the self that comes from overcoming the obstacles that are automatically there. For anybody who's super sensitive, you're born super sensitive. And the world is overwhelming. So that is the point. That is the path. Early adulthood, life crisis, relationships fail, career seems meaningless. Early adaptations create more problems than they solve. Boy, do they ever. When I think of my early life, it was one crisis after another. By God's grace, I got through school and graduate school valedictorian, because I was seeking a safe space to do my work, to get away. I wasn't enmeshed in the social life of college. I found it to be chaotic. And so my early life, and then the first marriage was terrible betrayal. And then betrayal of sisters, getting involved with the husband, bribing him against me. And everything that went from that up into the reading of the will, which was more betrayal, and going to a small town, escaping to a small town, and then immediately being hit by the new kid on the block syndrome and the women coming against me, and then escaping out to a ghost town to get refuge from them. The whole thing was one thing after another, but it made me strong. You know, if adversity just bend a man, it only makes him stronger. The interesting thing for all of you empaths out there is the connection between the body and the mind. The somatype, the body. Autoimmune problems. From the body's attempt to process collective emotional trauma. Not only are you absorbing the emotional traumas of everybody around you, but the collective unconscious as well. You go deep. You don't know how to shield yourself from it. You don't know how to pick your thoughts and pick your battles. You're just out there flailing around. Autoimmune. I have MCS, multiple chemical sensitivity. I really get sick in groups. It's cumulative. Everything from perfumes to everything else. And I got to live way out in the country, not around streets and tires and oils and building materials and everything else. It's got to be way out because of the problems, the early problems in adapting to this overwhelming chaos of the world. This has to be looked into. You know, autoimmune reaction, and that's just one. But the immune system is overloaded because of what the brain is going through, trying to sort out things. Well, everybody's coming against you. We all want to belong, and yet an empath cannot form strong attachments because everybody's judging them. People want you to conform to them or the group, and they think you're crazy if you don't. My aunt would say, "You're just different. I don't understand why you're so different. It's like you want to be different." And I would say, "I don't understand. I'm just myself. I don't study the group to try to be like them. You know, why aren't they trying to be like me? I don't understand this." All through history, it's cyclical. There are trends and things change as to what is considered mundane reality, mundanity. It changes. It's not the same all through history. It changes. Why would a genius or a saint want to adapt to that? They just want to be themselves. The empath struggles with workplace, office politics, and competition. I could never have stood that. I had enough of that just in my own family or just in graduate school. The undercurrent of competition. Who's superior to who? That's the human herd. And thank God I didn't have to take that. Undercurrents in any office environment. With stunning accuracy, they can assess any burden. They struggle with competition. The empath comes into the office environment and says, you can see, oh yeah, she's flirting with the boss. She slept with that boss. He's doing this. They can see everything like a chess game. They can see it all. They better not talk about it though, or they'll be fired. But anyway, workplace and competition is a big problem with the empath. The young empath always feels like they're drowning in feelings that are not their own. They can go into a grocery store and suddenly get depressed because they're absorbing the emotional undercurrent of somebody they're standing next to. That's how deeply empathic they are. Always. So they suddenly find themselves sequestered, just wanting to be in the room. I read about a famous billionaire And she spent her whole life like that. She had the money to sequester herself. Being in room with others was simply too much. And she ended up in hospitals all her life, where she could just be with the nurses and not ever take interviews with anybody. Everybody wanted to interview her. She was regarded as a curiosity, a billionairess who never went to events, was never seen, and of course people get more curious about you. The more you try to avoid them, the more they follow you. And she spent her whole life like that, in hospitals. Not even in she had many manors, huge multi-million-dollar manors and homes. She never even visited them. She kept them fully managed. They kept them in top shape, but she never went to them. She just wanted to be in hospitals, protected in a safe environment. That's how bad this can get if you're an empath. With these early empaths, the childhood environment literally reshapes the brain to be highly acute to everybody's internal state. It's the only way to survive. The social world is cruel. So the brain reshapes to know exactly what to do to survive, which is to escape. That's what I wrote. Highly sensitive people who had early stress, childhood environment literally reshapes the brain to enhance empathic abilities. This will make you a genius at age 80 writing your books and healing people. But you got to go through this first. Good. Thank God for it. Okay, so the empath has an uncanny ability to read people and situations as a pure survival strategy. Okay? The main thing is that they feel as an outsider. It's really hard to feel like you're an outsider. In the wolf pack, the outsiders starve to death. I often wonder the relationship between feeling like an outsider all the time with no friends and the development of eating disorders. I think there's a relationship because wolves who are sequestered from the pack starve to death, die. It's very important to belong. Like dogs are social animals. They want to belong. People want to belong. But if you can't, you can't. Some people are born into really insane families, insane cultures all through history. You've had some really crazy cultures written in the Bible. Cultures of monsters, cultures of murder everywhere. You know, insanity in the streets. And you had cycles of very humane generations where things was orderly and friendly and no violence. It's cyclical like this. And you know, you can't determine what kind of a culture or family you're born into. But if you're an empath, life can be hell. But you know, the more you overcome, the more these abilities will develop where you can be a healer later, an excellent lecturer, an excellent teacher, or you can develop artistic abilities. That can be your safe space, going deep into the collective unconscious. As a writer, a poet, a playwright, whatever, a movie maker, these will give you uncanny abilities in your field later. That's the only way to look at it. Don't commit suicide over these early things. Don't become a drunkard, because most people do, you know, they fall into their bag. You don't want to do that. You're going to take this and make it your gift. They feel like outsiders in their own family. Yeah, they're all like peas in a pod, and you're the weird one. You're the weird one. They have challenges with boundaries. You see, because I was rejected from my own family and resented by my mother, who was a narcissist and a raging alcoholic. May she rest in peace. She stopped drinking before she died. I felt like, gee, I had to have somebody around me, so I had problems with boundaries later, letting everybody in just so I would have some belonging, somebody to talk to, but they were the wrong people. I could not distinguish. It would be a good boundary, a bad boundary, to shut these people out, to make a space for better people. And then if I ever drank, that attracts lower companions. That's part of the disease of alcoholism, attracting lower companions. So that all had to be overcome. This all came from acute sensitivity, falling into my bag, overcoming that, and then going forward. Let's hope it doesn't take till middle age with you. The early empath, across the world, across history, across cultures, are usually written about like medicine women. And, somebody like that. Or seers, visionaries. The people who have overcome all that, had a terrible early life, and became a medicine woman or a medicine man. So you see, all through history, if you look at it, they always had a slot for somebody like this. The medicine woman, the empath who's overcome, offers the world structure and protection since their childhood environment never provided it. They were unprotected. They were not instructed how to deal with the world if you're an empath. Building boundaries is essential. Nobody told them that. They told them instead, join groups, join churches, get friends. You don't have any friends. They didn't say build boundaries. So from all the destruction that came from that, now they can offer the world structure and protection by saying, this is what happened. This is why you're like that. This is the abilities that will come from this. You did it only to survive, and that may include falling into your bag, the addictions that came from that, just in order to find some solace. Yes, we have to take responsibility for our addictions, but they are maladaptations, coping strategies to deal with this. It's awfully hard to be super sensitive when you have a house full of people who are coming over to mooch off of you, and you're too lonely to get rid of them. You just allow it because you're so lonely. You have to understand what's happening. The evil world will come in on you if you don't have boundaries. That's why you fell into your bag. That's why you got addicted. And just by seeing the structure, you can overcome it and go forward as a medicine man. Regarding the diet, I have found a nifty thing. Least digestion, highest nutrition equals maximum energy. I'm now on just dips, soups, and juices. Least digestion with the most nutritious things on earth. And that releases energy because digestion takes up 85% of our mental energy. And so I am high as a kite. Now I eat once a day. It's very high in calories because it's high in fat. Fat satiates for the whole day. Fat triggers glucagon, which puts you in fat burning mode, releases all water from the system, ends all inflammation, releases energy, and brings satiety. I have my almond butter, and then I have coconut milk and blue cheese cold soup I make from coconut milk, both carton and in the can, and ACV, that's apple cider vinegar, and a wedge of blue cheese, then garlic, chives, parsley, salt, and pepper. Put that in the blender, and if you add more of the cartoned coconut milk, you have a delicious cold soup. It's so filling for the whole day, packed with nutrition. The blue cheese is very high in protein. The coconut milk is very high in nutrients. Everything from potassium to magnesium, everything. And it's very satiating for the day. Try that. Least digestion, highest nutrition equals maximum mental energy. And you're filled up all day. I'm into cold soups, dips, and juices. I use apple juice, which is delicious afterwards. I'm no longer worried about low carb, high carb, just high nutrition. And this is not an eating disorder, because people with an eating disorder just want to lose weight. They aren't thinking about nutrition. I want a maximum nutrition, but least digestion. And the fats have got to be in there because it's only one meal a day. And you'll be sailing high all day long, guaranteed.